On tonight's episode of the Glue Guys, we're talking directly after Kyrie Irving's debut. We will dive into exactly everything we gleaned from Kyrie's first game this season with the Brooklyn Nets a win.
We're all hopped up on Kyrie. We're in a K-hole right now, Mike. A Kai-hole.
Welcome back to the Glue Guys. This is Mike here. Say hello, Brian. Check us out on Twitter at BKGlueGuys, Netsdaily.com, The Athletic. Get yourself behind the paywall at theathletic.com/GlueGuys. Brian.
Michael. Do you have the drop? You don't want to drop it?
Oh, my drop thing didn't play.
Oh, man. Brutal.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure why it didn't play. It should have. Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm good, Mike. We just watched that game together. That was fun on the Dirty Stream.
It was a fun game. For actually most of the game, it was a.
That was actually not
nightmare.
that fun. That was actually a really that was a really boring game. But for the end, which is kind of usually how a normal Nets game goes. So I mean, the Nets are back. Truly,
the Nets are back. So for the audience, we are recording this directly after the Pacers-Nets game. Brian and I are going to do a 15-minute wrap-up, and then on this show, you're going to hear we were on Nets Kingdom's YouTube feed. They do post-game shows all the time after Nets games. We're going to jump on that, and then we're going to play that on the podcast, our conversation with that crew.
Big show.
But, Brian.
Yeah.
This is going to be tough.
What are your takes? Mike? You got some takes? I don't really have good takes yet. That's my problem. I'm worried about going on the stream and having lame takes. I need spicier takes.
Well, so my fear was that the Nets were going to lose this game in embarrassing fashion because for most of the game, for about a half and then about a half of a quarter, so what is that? Is that 5/8? 5/8 of the game? It was pretty ugly for the Nets, and you could tell the takes were rolling. Okay, the take mill was processing. You
could hear Skip Bayless clacking away on his typewriter. On his old
like all the President's Men when the newspapers are rolling out of the factory and it's, we're going to find out that Richard Nixon's a bad guy. That was happening. The newspaper factory was printing papers, and we're about to find out that the Nets are bad with Kyrie Irving. And thankfully, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Bembry, and Kyrie Irving saved us from that fate because the Nets pulled away with a victory.
We say that really the tone setters for that comeback was, as always, Patty Mills, and then sometimes Bembry and Nick Claxton. But, and Kyrie picked up the steam that they were giving off from their coal steam engines. I don't know.
Sure.
But it was a little bit of a crusty beginning for Kyrie, and it made me think, like, it's funny to think like how like the margin of error for Kyrie to be playing bad is so razor thin for me at the moment, and it's all, it's just prejudice. It's just pure prejudice that I'm trying to work through, but like when he doesn't play well, or if he's like, there's like his opportunity is to be like, I'm just gassed, I'm not feeling it tonight, or like zero, no sympathy for that at all, just based on
you have no sympathy because of what we've all had to go through
because he's missed half the season, sort of, so in my opinion, somewhat voluntarily. So that's sort of what I'm working through, but like watching it was beautiful, obviously, and it's amazing to have him back.
Yes.
And he like kind of picked up midway through the game that the way to actually do this on this team this year, for whatever reason, is the mid-range jumper. So like that fits.
Well,
neatly.
this is the only Nets starter who made a three was Kevin Durant. He made two of them. The rest of them went 0 for 8 from three. That means Harden, Kyrie Irving, and David Duke Jr. Getting the start. And then David Duke didn't really play in the second
Where'd
half.
you get a box score? You got a box score?
I'm looking at the box score. They faxed it to me after the game. I don't know. Kyrie Irving deserves credit because he hit a lot of big buckets at the end of that fourth, like getting in that stretch.
Big time.
Where the Nets were getting the lead and then pulling away in the fourth quarter. Kyrie was going to the bucket, and he was doing the thing that the team was missing, right? Like he did do a lot of mid-range, but because Harden was recovering from his hamstring, and Durant's really just not a guy who goes to the bucket because he's a mid-range maestro.
Yeah.
Kyrie was doing the thing that you've talked about many, many times. The Nets needed someone who could penetrate and get to the hole and put up a shot near the basket, and he did that consistently near the end on Sabonis and on other players on the Pacers. I mean, frankly, this Pacers team, I'm going to look at who the guards were that got the most minutes for the Pacers. D. Washington Jr., Kay Sykes got 40 minutes. Lance Stevenson, I can't even say hilariously because he earned it. 30-point game for Lance, 12 for 19 from the field. Lance was like, it was a joke early on in the game to the fact that this was Lance Stevenson's homecoming again to Indiana because they had just signed him to a 10-day contract. And it was his debut in a way with the team that was outshining Kyrie. But at the end, Kyrie had a direct impact on this game. Kevin Durant was phenomenal. 39 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. James Harden was kind of like that uneven James Harden game where everything came from the line, from his points. He made some kind of silly plays, like that play where he fouled Sabonis because the Nets kept giving up offensive rebounds to the Pacers. He just pushed Sabonis at the end of the game.
Being on Sabonis the entire game, is it a hilarious thing? A hilarious task, but this is, we've talked about Harden's only real calling on the defensive end is the post defense. It's a tough guard, and Sabonis had a fat line, I expect.
Yeah, Sabonis with 32 points, 10 assists, 12 rebounds. 10 of 14 from the field, 11 for 13 from the free throw line.
Perfect job, James.
Honestly, I know a lot of people have gotten on Steve Nash's coaching. I felt like it was a good decision because ultimately, besides Lance Stevenson, it was basically Sabonis was the only guy for the Pacers who did anything. Also because he's the only good player besides Miles Turner on the team at this point because of COVID. A big, bold takeaway, Bri, with Kyrie Irving is that the team's better with Kyrie Irving. And I think we should be thankful as Nets followers and Nets fans that the team didn't lose because, as I discussed, it would have been an onslaught of Kyrie Irving takes just on First Take, on ESPN overall, on Fox Sports 1, on every basketball. Bill Simmons would have had some infuriating Nets Kyrie Irving take that the Nets are better without Kyrie and they should try to trade him for anything but having Kyrie on the team. He made a difference in the game. And personal feelings aside about vaccines or whatever we want to discuss, he made a huge impact on the game. And I'm happy to watch him play basketball. I think I can.
But here's the thing, and this is where, in the post-game interview with Grady, it just comes rushing back, which is the next time you play, not the next game, but the next time you play is on Monday. Meanwhile, we're playing the Bucks at home on Friday, where it would be cool if you played. But you're not. So there's still, we've kicked the can down the road. I'm sure we'll talk about this a whole bunch.
The team that Giannis slid under you.
Yeah.
And cheap shotted you while you were in the air.
Somewhat voluntarily missing your revenge game here. You're just gonna miss it, maybe.
Well, I don't want to make too much of this, but there's a moment at the end of the game, the Nets win. Kyrie Irving is going over to do the interview post game with Michael Grady on the Yes Network. The camera's following him. The Yes cameras are following him so we can see him do it. And he goes, his dad's there courtside. He goes to hug his dad. And I'm sure it is emotional for Kyrie.
And his dad pushes him away. He says, no hugs. No hugs, son. Not for you.
No.
That didn't happen.
It was like this moment of it's the picture of adversity, like someone overcoming adversity. Like, oh, Kyrie, you've been out for so long. But the adversity was completely self-inflicted.
You've seen that meme of
feeling.
It's a close-up of a boot on a kid's head, and then it zooms out, and it's a kid with a boot on his hand that's pushing it onto his own head.
Exactly.
It's sort of that, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a weird psychological gymnastics that we have to go through. The fact that, yes, for Kyrie emotionally must have felt like he's overcome something, but really all he did was just stand his ground and realize that his talent was going to overtake whatever corporate organizational structure. And he gave a shout out to the Nets organization in the post game, which was delicious. That he was
it said
from top to bottom, the Nets organization, we deserve this. And it's well, I don't know how you really feel, but
there's an interest in his, and I have to imagine in his worldview, he's actually probably pretty appreciative that they didn't freak out. A lot of other franchises would have lost their ever-loving minds. And, the Nets, for better or worse, are pretty player-friendly, to say it lightly.
Completely player-run. Completely.
And he's stoked about that. So, shout out to the org.
The Nets are the Nets are the Department of Education, and Kyrie's Betsy DeVos, and they're trying to push charter schools, right? Like it's really like the lobbyists have taken over.
Right. There you go.
The department.
Nice. I thought you were about to say The Departed. We were just talking about The Departed.
Shout out to The Departed.
Dignum.
And you bring this up, so this Bucks game is Friday, and then it's San Antonio Spurs on Sunday, a noon tip on Sunday, and then the Nets have to fly out to Portland to play a game on Monday at 10 p.m. Monday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Kyrie will be in that Portland game, and then at Chicago. Can I say one funny thing? One of the ways
that'll be funny.
I guess it actually isn't that funny. But one of the ways that the Nets have sold this Kyrie return, right, is that it would alleviate the minutes distribution for Kevin Durant and James Harden. Kevin Durant played 41 minutes and James Harden played 40. And it's like, I don't care. Like, I don't care that the Nets, like, gave into Kyrie and that, whatever excuse they have. We know the real excuse is just that they want to be a better team. But the minutes thing, the second Kyrie plays, Kevin Durant basically plays the entire basketball game.
Yeah.
And James Harden like him too.
We also have this weird thing where we pretend to not. We were talking about this. Shout out to the Discord. Shout out to the Dirty Stream on the stream where Matt Parker was like, we're pretending to not want to win these regular season games, meanwhile playing huge minutes for our star players. Like it's a bit of a meme. Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of it, and I'm sure it'll persist. I mean, this has just been Nash's MO. Like, he's like a player's coach, and if the players want to grind their own bones into dust, he's here for it. That's the deal. Part of our player friendliness. It's an extension of
that. I think overall, it's beyond it actually literally being a win for the Nets. Kyrie's return couldn't have gone better for like the way Kyrie played. He looked good. He didn't have a three-point shot in this game. He took two of them. He didn't make any of them. But he got to the basket. He hit his mid-range. He was smooth. He was impactful in the moment of the game when they really needed him to be impactful. He provided the boost when no other player outside Harden and Durant really had anything going. Like Patty Mills came alive a little bit. Bembry, 5 for 5 from the field. Bembry making some really key defensive plays at the end there. This is what you want. Hey, you played a bad Indiana Pacers team that was wrecked by COVID. They had no guards, and they got the W. They staved off embarrassment. Now the Nets have a day off and go home, and then they play the Bucks on Friday in a game that Kyrie Irving will have to watch on the scoreboard of his flag football stadium.
He could come on the stream. Kyrie, if you're listening, come hang out on the stream and pop in the Discord. Me and Mike will be watching with you.
Before we go on to Nets Kingdom and get that part of the show rolling, can I ask you about David Duke starting?
that really stuck in your craw.
What's happening? I mean, I love David Duke. Everyone knows, like, David Duke Jr. is a fantastic prospect. I'm glad the Nets found him and are fostering that. Like, I think he has real talent. But in a game, this is so Steve Nash. In a game when Kyrie makes his return, he's like, I'm also just going to throw David Duke Jr. out there. But, like, totally mix it up. What did you make of DDJ's 18 minutes? He was 0 for 2 from the field.
It's very I just can't, like, I would want to be there. would have wanted to be there for Nash, like, telling everybody, like, guys, I had this idea and go with me here, because it's just a funny thing to do. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. I think it's maybe just a nod to the fact that, like, I don't care who's back or what. We're never, ever going to have a normal rotation on this team. I don't care who's back for how long. You can play here for 10 years, and you're not getting a normal rotation. You don't ever know when your minutes are coming and when you're getting called up. Kyrie Irving return game or not. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, but it's very Nashian. So
we've had the Kyrie Irving return. There was a lot of hype. The Nets got the Nets on Yes Crew had the post-game interview with him. I think it was probably the longest one of the year because they wanted to get a bunch of questions in, which I'm thankful for. Here's what this team is right now. So Kevin Durant had the 39 points. He was phenomenal. James Harden had a very James Harden-ish game, like pretty average for him, not exceptional but average. Kyrie provided the boost. LaMarcus Aldridge and Patty Mills and Bembry all made plays. Bruce Brown did not play. Blake Griffin played but looked was embarrassed. I mean, wasn't good. He had a really embarrassing couple of minutes. Um, my last piece of the puzzle here is the Joe Harris piece of the puzzle. And as Brian is dusting off his
So
beard,
I just had a giant fluff in my beard this entire time. You didn't tell me. Dear God.
I thought it was like a balding spot. I thought you were like balding in your face.
Damn it.
I almost more than Kyrie Irving, I think this team needs Joe Harris back because there's just it's like weird the lack of shooting lineups that they'll run out sometimes when they have literally the greatest shooting big man of all time in Kevin Durant and James Harden, who's like not the best shooting guard, but a pretty dynamic step back three shooter, and like hasn't been that good this year. They need Joe Harris.
It's really interesting that James Harden. I mean, I don't know that we've talked enough about how like unique he is, and just like he has his like shots, like the James Harden like repertoire of like 3 or 4. It's the step back three, his like weird. I've just got this like one step on a larger defender dribble drive thing that ends in like a pretty like kind of weird flip up body to body shot, and then like not much anything in between. There's not a whole lot of creativity happening with James Harden. He's like, these are my efficiency weapons. Like Maury and I like went off into our Shaolin temple and we came back with these unstoppable moves, and they're being a little inconsistent. But like, you know, last week when they were kicking ass. So and now that he kind of continues to be up and down with it, it's very strange.
Yeah, it's the Street Fighter. It's the guy who just does
he's spamming the like leg sweep.
Yeah, that's
Mortal
all
Kombat.
you do, and you kind of just like sit in the corner and you shoot that move out constantly, like you're like an angry turtle, and no one can really attack you. I mean, like if anyone could actually figure out how to throw a fireball, could maybe do something.
You get him.
But if you approach the kicker,
right,
you have no shot.
Right, he's got that, and then like the flying jump kick, and he's just doing those two things over and over.
Last thoughts. How do you feel about? How did you just give me your feelings of seeing Kyrie Irving play basketball?
It was great.
None of the bullshit.
And none of the bullshit was okay. So my honest thing was like, I was like, I'm glad that everything happened the way that it did. I was really not looking forward to a lengthy like coming back like. If there was any kind of like he needs to get some more reps in to get his rhythm back, like I was really gonna hate any storyline like that. So I'm glad that didn't happen, and that or like it did kind of happen, but it was all in just one game. He just got it all out in one game, and hopefully that's the last of it. But other than that, it's like kind of classic Kyrie Irving. You know, there's no reason to suspect that he's got any. He's anything other than what we would have expected. So, and for that, I'm quite happy. But again, we've kicked this whole thing down the road. We still have all of these lingering macro issues, contractually, all this other crap. So it's like it's never going to go away, but until one of these things get resolved. So that's just lingering there, and I don't know what to do with that feeling. But
yeah, again, like the image of him hugging his dad and it feeling like a scene that you see of overcoming something, but really, again, it's his own self-creation. It's a hard thing to grapple with.
Yeah.
I saw exactly what I needed to see out of Kyrie. I completely agree with you. If there was some ramp up period of a month, I would have been throwing up every day.
Yeah.
Of like disgust of this ramp. I don't need ramping. I need to see basketball at this point. I love that Kevin Durant and Harden played a bunch of minutes, which means that the Nets excuse really doesn't matter. They just wanted Kyrie Irving back. They could have just said, hey, we realize we need Kyrie Irving, and we hope he gets the shot, but he probably won't. I don't think it's going to make him get the shot. The team saved itself by winning this game, because if they had lost this game, it really would have opened them up to even having – it was a 3-game losing streak going into this one. They looked bad against Memphis. They didn't lead that game at all in the loss against Memphis. It was getting pretty wonky against the Pacers, a really bad Pacers team right now. And they got the dub Friday night, Milwaukee Bucks.
Now, if they lose against Milwaukee,
almost doesn't matter.
Does it? Because losing at home against Milwaukee is
now they have the built-in excuse of like, hey, they don't know their full team.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, it's like sort of, if we're looking at it as a precursor for a narrative that will be, that's just a few months off on the horizon, playing Milwaukee, Game 7 at home.
Well, some news, and obviously I hope everyone's okay, but Giannis has an illness that isn't COVID. So he's out right now. So who knows if we don't have any clue. Mike Brunholzer is out because of health and safety protocols.
Yeah. Okay.
Grayson Allen
for
and
symbolic.
Patty
I'm just
Connaughton.
saying for symbolic reasons, Mike. Don't
No, I'm just
scrutinize
saying
it
that,
too hard.
okay, because basically why I'm saying that is I don't give the Nets much of a chance against a full, like the way the Nets are playing right now. They're not playing with a ton of energy. And I think some of that can be attributed to the fact that the entire team had COVID, whether they were asymptomatic or slightly symptomatic or more than slightly symptomatic. The entire team had COVID. So they took a week off of basketball, which, yeah, I guess you can heal, like your body relaxes to some degree, but it does get you out of rhythm at the very least. And they looked good when they came back in that first game.
You're saying your body relaxes when you have COVID? Is that what you?
No, when you don't play.
Oh.
Like they didn't play for a week.
Yeah.
And they beat the Lakers and they beat a bad Clippers team, but then they've looked bad since, and then they lost to the Clippers, they lost to the Grizzlies.
Yes.
I'm just saying the team, it's not like this team hasn't gone through some turbulence over the past few weeks.
True. Big true.
But Kyrie Irving, it's what are we? We enjoy basketball and we appreciate seeing it, and I hope he gets vaccinated. Wouldn't that be great? Hey, let's do this.
Take a break.
Quick break. Coming back. This will be our conversation on Nets Kingdom.
I love it. I'm back. Do I look okay?
You're back, baby. Yeah, you're back now. You're good now. You're good now.
Sick. What's up, fellas?
Love you, OJ Mayo Films. Come on.
Yeah, we were just talking about, Brian, how you feel about the game, your thoughts about the game tonight.
Oh, it was a journey. It was great. Ultimately, it was really cinematic. Like, it was like, oh God, no, it's going to be like we have to wait for Kyrie to like get his reps back and like get into rhythm. And then like, we just kind of fast forwarded through that whole awful narrative. So we don't have to do that anymore. And now he's back to being good and fine and normal. So like, I'm so happy that we don't have to do 2 weeks or whatever of like, are they gonna get back to what and like, is he gonna be okay again? So I'm thrilled by that part of it. But it was great. Yeah, I mean, like,
the big part of the game, like we were just talking about this, about Nash's starting lineup. So Nash started, if you guys didn't watch, well, people in the chat, if you didn't watch the game, he started the big three, DDJ, the rookie, and Claxton. So a lot of flack on Nash tonight because, again, the rotations were very sus. And then in the second half, in the first half, it was an 8-man rotation. He kept it very, like, short rotation. In the second half, he opened it up. We saw Bembry get injected into the lineup. And then once Bembry got in, it was like, you seen his stats, plus 26, amazing defense, cutting off passing lanes, in the fourth quarter. So Nash kind of got that flack. I know Nets Twitter's going crazy on Nash right now. So
why do you think he did DDJ over Bembry? Like, I can't think of like why he did it. Is it just because he thought like David Duke would have more like nervous guy energy and like for that reason like get Kyrie more into it, or I don't know. Yeah.
That question literally was just asked before we got on, and we're trying to like, I think somebody said was like Nash to the point where he can do like where he's doing some like Phil Jackson mind games.
Yeah.
Reverse, is it reverse psychology? Like, I'm gonna bench you for a rookie, and you will come back in. You know what I'm saying? And maybe a guy Bembry, like, because Bembry came off the bench like smoking, like he was like, yo, like,
yeah.
I think we went on like a 7-0 run as soon as he came in. I'm like, bro.
Yeah.
They should have started Cam Thomas over Kyrie. That would have really fired up.
Oh, here we go. Don't let the chat get started, bro. The chat about to come
we
at
were
you.
debating up until they announced like you just didn't know, like, is Kyrie in the lineup? Is he going to come off the bench? How many minutes is he going to get? Like, you just didn't know, like, what Nash was going to do. And I think we were all very surprised when I saw DDJ in there. I was like, okay, I was surprised. Like, I wasn't unhappy, but I wasn't happy either, because to me it was like, we're on this like 3-game losing streak. We talked about a possible another trap game where we're like, oh no. And then I just started thinking about how big the Pacers are. And I'm like, we're still going to struggle there, even with Claxton, right? Like, Claxton's emerging, but the rebounds are still not there, and he's hit or miss sometimes. And it's like, so I was a little nervous. And then when I saw DDJ, I'm like, this is pretty small. We're fast, but we're small. Like,
I was happy until the game started, and I was like, oh, I don't know. This is a good idea. But we saw the Pacers go zone in that first quarter. They went zone, and then we kind of looked good. Like, the spacing looked kind of good at first.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That really helped us.
Yeah.
I was like surprised. The zone, I know Rick Carlisle is a basketball genius and like way smarter than me, but it kind of made it easy for Kyrie and Harden and Durant to kind of play together because it just became, hey, let's just kind of move the ball a little bit and find the open guy.
Yeah, it was like swing.
They did us a
and then,
favor
like,
by playing that way. Like, it was just like they respected Kyrie right off the bat. It was like they're like, oh, we got to space these guys out. It was great.
You got to be a smart coach because it's like I'm not playing the big three man to man. So he went zone and it kind of worked. And then we couldn't call Lance Stevenson turning into a prime MJ.
Yeah,
in the first quarter.
yeah,
like,
that was.
I
weird.
think he broke a record tonight.
Yeah.
Like, what they say he was like one of the first NBA players or something like that to score 20 in something minutes. Like it was unbelievable. That first quarter.
Truly Lance Stevenson.
Do you give Lance a roster spot for the Nets? Are we doing that?
I want to bring it back home. Don't ask me that, bro, because I want to bring it back home. I want to bring Lance back home.
Boogie just got cut, Mike. Are you excited by that?
Yeah, but bring Boogie in, bring Lance in, but
Yeah,
then you have to
get
get rid of Javon
Yeah, get rid of
Carter.
somebody.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the two to go first would be Carter and Millsap, in my opinion. But I know some people like Millsap, but I'm just not. I don't know. I'm not there. Like,
well, we just haven't seen it.
What's to like about?
Yeah.
I mean, no offense. He hasn't really.
I like the idea of Paul Millsap.
Yeah.
Ryan and I have been talking about Paul Millsap for like
Two years ago. Give me some Paul Millsap. I just feel like we,
2 years ago.
But this game was all about Kyrie. It was about Bembry too at the end, as he said.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for Joe Harris's whenever he comes back, hopefully like in 2-ish weeks, because the DDJ starting spot is going to go back to Joe. The team is still going to be a little small and not that good defensively as a starting unit, but they need that that pure shooter, that pure floor spacer. Patty's like phenomenal, but sometimes Patty, one, he's way smarter than Joe, and also he has horrible games sometimes. Sometimes he was like 0 for 7 from 3, right?
Yeah.
So they really need to get Joe back in it.
Is DDJ like the actual scarecrow of Joe Johnson? Is that the reason why he's in there? Like, we got to get like our rotations in, and like let's just like have this guy. I mean,
Yo, I'm trying to figure out like what was that? I know what I thought it was, because like how last game we wanted the rookies to play. I think like somebody pressed Nash like in the DMs or like, yo, come to your house if we don't play these rookies or something. And he was just like, I gotta play a rookie.
Yeah.
It seemed like a panic move because he's like, I gotta play a rookie, and then he just put
funny,
DDJ there. Like,
it's funny too that it happened because yesterday I was in a Spaces where Jamal Crawford pulled up, right, and he just started talking about some general things, and like one of the questions I asked him was like, hey, how much are the vets like really pressuring the coach to play some of these rookies, right? Like they're practicing with them, they see what they're doing, they see the energy. Like, how much are they really saying, yeah, put this guy in? And I'm just like, to see him DDJ in their necks, I'm like wondering like whose input was that, right? Was that just like off Nash's head? Who was that?
It's
like
just it was a weird random
it was
kind
a
of
very
because we weren't expecting it. We weren't expecting it. I mean, like I said, I was happy until like the game started. I was like, wait a minute, maybe this wasn't right.
Someone in the chat said it's like he is a good rebounder for a smaller, like he's not too small, but a smaller player. He is a good rebounder. They needed the rebounding. They tried, what was it, LaMarcus and Nick Claxton together like 2 games ago.
Yeah, the Sixers game.
And that's just like a tough thing because they both occupy the same space. Obviously, LaMarcus can hit the jumper and be out there where Nick Claxton could be near the hoop. But then you still have 2 big men basically in the lane blocking things up for guards, like Harden and Kyrie in this game, driving to the hole. So I don't know.
It was weird. It was just like a weird kind of move. And I like I said before, we're not saying Nash is trash and all that, but he still has work to do, y'all. He has, like I said, the second year. We just gotta deal with the pain sometimes.
There's something to be said to having your 16th starting lineup in 30 some odd games. There's something to be discussed there. Like, I get the reasoning for some of the different lineups, but we're talking 30. Like, half the games we played this year have had a different starting lineup, which is kind of crazy to think.
Yeah, but a lot of that's also just like the personnel situation that he's been dealt is just like it's chaotic. So, in a lot of ways, I think he's kind of perfect for just like this moment because he's just like dealing with mostly like in and out personnel decisions. But like that window of him like being a good coach for other reasons, like X's and O reasons, is pretty short because, if next season, like, God willing, all this stuff is figured out and like Kyrie's playing a full season and whatever, like if we're still doing like weird starting rotation things with David Duke or whatever whatever new dumb thing he comes up with, like that's just gonna be that's just gonna be frustrating and like
The
and
experiment.
Yeah.
When he puts on his lab coat.
yeah.
Nash puts on his lab coat and wants to experiment all the time.
Yeah. What?
Nice.
No, I'm trying to keep.
Come on, though. Like, for real, like, I'm tired of hearing we're trying shit out. Excuse my language, but the one thing I'm tired of hearing is we're trying things out. And I get it. Like, I understand the reasoning for some things, but I'm over the trying out. Like,
Yeah.
I want what works.
I mean, now that Kyrie's back, it's like the personnel's sort of ostensibly back, but for Joe Harris, and like now it should be the time where you're kind of shoring up that rotation for most other guys. But maybe Nash just never wants to be that way, and it's like his ideal system is one of like total fluidity, and that's how he wants to manage this thing and manage everyone's expectations. Like, you could make an argument for that. I haven't seen that like done before, but it'd be a cool. I mean, it's a cool thought. I don't know if you can do it, I guess is the fear. Yeah.
Trust me, we're going nice on Nash. If you go on Spaces and Twitter right now, they're going. You'll see
Really?
what they're talking about.
What's the big beef? Like, what's the main?
In one spaces, they're very, very kind to Nash, right? And they
Okay.
bring out all the. They
This
bring
feels
out
like
all
a
the positives,
Dr.
what would
Seuss
you-
book. Yeah, in
Yeah,
one
like,
space.
hey, how would you handle it? Like,
Yeah.
and then the other one is like just all over. Like, no, Nash, you got to go. You suck. Like, there's two different worlds in the Nash world. Like,
Okay.
there's not too many people in the middle. You're either defending him
So
or you
for
hate him.
the people that are critical, like, what's the main? It's like the rotation, the beef, or just like a lack of, like, now our offense is like average where it used to be historically good. Like, what's the?
I think it's just some of the inconsistencies with the rotation. That's why they're angry.
Yeah.
Like last game, he just gotta, like, I guess, read the room. You know what I'm saying? Like, inject somebody with energy when you're down bad, or change it up when something goes wrong. I think Nets Nation is just frustrated, like, with his decision making at times.
I think reluctance to bring in some of the rookies, especially during the game. Granted, they were forced to. I know that, but then it's like everybody's screaming, play a rookie, and then he plays DDJ, and then everybody's like, Nash, that was a horrible decision.
Yeah, right. He plays a rookie, and then he's like,
I do get it, right? Like, there is that balance, but
Yeah, I just think he's like a necessary politician for like this phase of our, player run organization effectively. And then like as soon as if like we don't win a championship this season and he's at the helm and like the player run organization has like some real turbulence, like we're gonna need to have a real hard look at the Nash situation for sure.
Greg Popovich comes to the rescue.
Yeah, there you go. You've been saying that forever.
Mike, are you pro Nash, or are you like middle ground,
Nash.
or you are 100% pro Nash?
Hugely, because there's not a single coach in the NBA who could have handled the politics, as Brian brought up, of Kyrie's situation so beautifully. Like we had on Mo DeKeel on our pod, and Mo used to be a video coordinator for the Clippers and Spurs. So like he also used to coach with Team Australia, so he knows Patty Mills. And so he was saying, I brought up Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers is thought of as like this coach, the guy, he is like the best in the locker room. He's such a leader. He's so smart. He really has a great touch with guys. But the situation that happened with the 76ers and Ben Simmons really kind of started with Doc saying something, blaming, kind of throwing Ben Simmons under the bus. And that situation has just been bad, right? That's been bad for the locker room and all this stuff. They've had the thing where like the video of Ben Simmons having a cell phone in his sweatpants as he's at practice. And like first day back, he's like, whatever. So like Nash has navigated this crazy vaccinated, unvaccinated Kyrie Irving thing, managing the personalities of like Durant and Harden probably at the time were like, why is Kyrie not playing? Like for them, they're like, we don't care about the politics of vaccinations or not. Like all they cared about was like winning basketball games. That's because they're basketball, like that they should. And so Nash hit, like you didn't hear a second of like dissension from inside the locker room coming out of reports from Shams or Woj, right? And I think that's Nash. That's Nash's impact of saying, like, keeping the temperature down. And to me, that's the most important thing when your team is this talented, is to have that. And when Joe Harris comes back, the rotation is going to fall into place pretty easily, right? Like, it'll be the big three for road games, Joe Harris and either Nick Claxton or Aldridge. And then the bench is going to be like Patty Mills, Bembry, either Nick Claxton or Aldridge, depending, James Johnson. And that's basically the rotation at that
Yeah.
point. So like all this, like Nash makes weird rotational decisions.
Yeah.
But in the end, like I'd rather have the guy who makes kind of weird rotational decisions but can really handle personalities than Lionel Hollins. Like I don't want
Okay.
I don't want
yeah, that
grumpy
makes
Lionel
He's right.
yelling at people.
Sometimes the X and O
Going-
coach, sometimes the X and O
Yeah.
coach doesn't have those people skills. Like Nash does have like people skills. He does have.
Well, like they used to kind of say that, not that Kenny was X's and O's guy, but like Kenny was such a hard Kenny Atkinson was just such a hard charging coach. Like he's all about development, working hard, and that like unfortunately, as much as we love Kenny Atkinson, that didn't mesh with Durant. You know, he didn't coach Harden, but Durant and Kyrie and DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah,
Or-
I think Kenny should get another job. Like I don't understand why like young teams aren't trying to hire Kenny Atkinson because he's the best young team coach in the NBA. But like I think Nash is doing the right job. He's not doing the best job. He's just doing the right job for this team. But
we were just talking
in the
about
second round, they should fire him. I mean,
I did say earlier, but if we don't win with this, like it's time to start over.
Get him out of here.
Well,
We were just talking about Kenny last stream, bro.
the problem with Kenny marketing himself as like the development coach is that he's just gonna get fired every 4 years. That's like he's just never gonna find a. Once they get good, you're out.
Look what he did with the Warriors young boys. He did with the Warriors young. He developed them over there. And then what was the other team he went to? Saints. I remember we were talking.
Knicks.
About
He was
Warriors,
the Clippers.
He was a Knicks guy for years too.
Yeah, he was doing work. And look at the Warriors young guys now. They're playing. They're balling. So
Kenny's like the CEO who specializes in corporate restructuring, which just means like firing a whole bunch of people. Like they bring Kenny in to fire a whole bunch of people as CEO, and then they fire him to bring in like the CEO to like be the Phoenix rising from the ashes type of business guy.
So Kenny, develop our young guys, and then you're done.
Yeah.
It's like
get out of
young
here.
guys, and get out of here. Get out of here.
Brett Brown, same thing.
Yeah.
To end the Nash talk, I think you're always going to have that mix. And I think that's a good point, like Mike, that you say, where it's like you do look at from the managing aspect. And it's like, you're right. Like, despite all the narratives that certain people put out there about our locker room, about Kyrie, about things, it has been very silent and quiet, almost quiet too much, where we're like, we wish we got more information or heard something. So you're very right there. And there's always going to be that side that looks at trying to balance these rotations, trying to get, I would just like, and granted, we haven't been able to have that since we've acquired the big three completely, where it's just like at some point, whether it's at some point this year or the beginning of next year, I hate saying that there is that level of consistency where you know what your lineup is and we don't deviate from it too much, and unless there's injuries or what have you. But because I do think that sometimes part of our problem is that we are changing things so much for whatever reason that it causes us. But speaking, like, I don't know if you, AJ, if you think this is good, seeing Kyrie tonight, right, and seeing what he brings, and then now knowing, okay, great, we got Kyrie back today and it was awesome, but now we're going to miss him for 2 home games and then not till. There's a lot of talk there. Like, I'm just a little nervous about him continuing. Well, no, I shouldn't say I'm nervous, because he did show you tonight that he can come in after a long time and still give you a quality game. But I mean, how are you guys seeing this?
Yeah,
how are you guys seeing this going forward?
My issue is that it's just like not fully resolved. Like we just kind of like kick the can down the road on the Kyrie situation by letting him play these away games. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter ultimately if you think we can still win a championship with him just playing, less than half of potentially the playoff games. If that's where our heads are at, then then it makes total sense and is fine, I guess, to do it this way. But if that's not the case, like I don't like we're still not at a point of resolution here because so I guess I would put it to you guys, like, do we think that like Kyrie playing just half playoff games makes us still championship contenders? Are we worried about that? I mean, like, that's where we're at today, like using that as our rubric, not sort of like hypothesizing where we could be. Like, do we feel good about that situation?
We need him. I'm convinced.
I mean, I think we need him, but like, do we need him like
to win the whole thing?
You need him full
tough,
every
we
game.
need him full.
I think if we don't have Kyrie full time, it's going to be very tough to win it all.
I'm going to be
I know
real.
The away games.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, like, I know in the regular season, I guess it really ultimately doesn't matter, because I do think we do make it into the playoffs. And I guess it just depends on what kind of layout the playoffs look for us against who, where that becomes probably an issue of like the no, if Kyrie still is just away by then, where it does frustrate me. It makes me a little nervous. Like I used to be in the beginning of the season thinking we could totally win this without Kyrie. And then as time has gone on, I've been convinced we really need Kyrie to win this whole thing. We do. And
Yeah.
I'm not convinced yet about this halftime Kyrie.
Once we get past the second round, I feel like that's when things get murky in the playoffs. Like first round, we don't really need Kyrie full time, but once we get to the big bad teams,
Yeah.
that's when we're gonna need Kyrie.
It's an interesting position to be in too, because we're gonna have for the first time like a pretty interesting data set of just play, like a home and away thing of one individual player. Like, what's our offensive rating when he plays? What's our defensive rating? Like, people will be able to scrutinize his like on court, what he does, how it affects the team in a way that like not many like, and predict for it in a way that not many. That's never really happened. It's just a really weird spot to be in. And again, this kind of goes back to Nash. Like, I kind of like Nash as a person to manage that other version of this crisis more than most people. But I agree with you guys. Like, I think we need him full time. But like, so and now what? And then like so like,
It's like, what are we gonna do now?
yeah. Yeah. I don't know, Mike. What do you think?
Well, I see that. I'm on Twitter. Of
Okay,
course,
good.
And Kyrie was asked about getting vaccinated. And I'm reading from.
I knew someone was going to ask this question. I knew someone was going to ask this. I knew it.
Yes,
says,
please, breaking news.
I'm just taking it one day at a time. And then Christian says that via Kyrie says, Kyrie said this is not an ideal situation and hopes for, quote, some collective agreement with the league, which is like still like, I don't want to get into local ordinances, is one of my favorite things, but it's not really the league's. Again, it's not the league's doing. But the local ordinance, like, it's so hard because, we talk about day to day, like he should want to get vaccinated for his own health and all that stuff. But if he is holding out, like if he wants Johnson & Johnson, he only has to take one, or if he wants the other ones, he has to take two, and you need to get both before you're considered fully vaccinated. If it's Pfizer, Moderna,
Yeah,
meaning
they
like
did change that now,
he can't make a rash like basically he has to either take the Johnson & Johnson and then he's vaccinated. It's so confusing. But
So much
like,
different things.
It's like, it is tough. It is very tough to be this excited because like if you read the quotes from Durant and Harden, both of them were over the moon post game talking to reporters about Kyrie and about the fact that of like how great it was to play with Kyrie Irving, how dynamic he is as a player. Like I think Durant literally said he's like basically like he's an artist out there or stuff like that. Like they love playing with him, and it's now going to feel weird that he's just like then he's going to go not play when they're at home against the team that took him out of the playoffs. They're playing the Bucks on Friday. Giannis hurt Kyrie. The Bucks knocked the Nets out of the playoffs. Harden played in that series basically on one leg. That's how badly he wanted to beat the Bucks. And they're going to play on Friday, having had this experience with Kyrie again.
Yeah.
It's a mind trip for them too. Where I wonder for them, I'm talking about Harden and KD. I wonder if they're going to have an increased sense of urgency with Kyrie now, because he's there playing with them sometimes, and they can say to him, like, obviously make your decision, but like this is how we feel because we love playing with you.
I want to ask you guys, since you guys have the plugs and the connects, make sure when I say this, make sure you guys subscribe to the Glue Guys on YouTube and on Twitter. BK Glue Guys. Make sure you guys subscribe to them.
Don't forget if you podcast, because I listen to their podcast. I drive an hour to work, and they are like that. They're one of my saving graces on my.
You guys are great. Thanks, fellas.
Yeah, I want to ask you guys because last time we talked about Kyrie on our stream, we were talking about this exemption thing that was going on about the 90-day exemption. Basically, a doctor, New York City doctor. This is what I'm referring to what Jay was telling me. A New York City doctor came out and said that if you are COVID positive, you can get a 90-day exemption. I guess you can get a 90-day exemption from getting. I guess it would allow Kyrie to play for those 90 days.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's. Like I said, I'm not confirming nothing.
Mike, this is Mike's territory. He knows all the municipality.
So if you can ask somebody around.
Eric, we did actually. This is a good tidbit. We actually forgot to respond to Eric Adams, who wanted to come onto the show like right before COVID started in March of 2020.
Really?
Yeah.
You're lying. Eric Adams really
This was like, I don't even know if he was technically
Damn it,
running
guys.
for mayor yet,
Oh
but
my God,
he
that's
wanted
crazy.
because he wanted to go on. This was like pre-running to be like get his name out there. Even
He was a
more.
Charlie Nobody at this point. I mean, we have to put it into context. He was.
And
guys had
we
Eric
could have had
Adams.
Eric Adams on, and we're like,
Dude, you could have had it all, bro.
We could
Could've
still
had Kyrie out there,
Every
bro.
answer.
Yeah. Now we have to
Wait,
send that.
why did it fall apart? Why he didn't come on? Like he just like.
Oh,
because we didn't know. We didn't want to talk to the Brooklyn Borough president about that. Like we just like, what are we going to talk to him about?
Yeah.
Like,
He wasn't a guy
Brian and
yet.
I, like we
Yeah.
look for any reason not to do an interview.
Yeah.
Unless if it's
Oh
like
my
Bruce
God.
Brown. That's
Yeah.
basically the only person we want to talk to. So it was like
Yo.
we have said to him. You
He
know?
wouldn't have given us the goods.
Hey.
Yeah.
But
Mike would have had his number, and he would have been able to like text him late at
would have
night.
been able to text him like,
You up?
90-day exemption.
You up?
Exemption for
So-
Kyrie.
Okay. I am looking at this guidance on accommodations for workers. This was issued on December 20th, 2021. Okay. I do see that there's a temporary medical exemption could be granted if
COVID.
workers has presented medical documentation showing that they are within 90 days of antibody or whatever treatment of COVID. The thing is, this has to do with like
New York City workers.
yeah. So I guess technically, like, what could happen is Kyrie Irving could sue the city of New York to then be qualified under that exemption, and a court could say, "Well, New York City, this is crazy, but New York City, you give this exemption for one class of worker, but not another. What's the difference?" But
I'm saying this because it could be a big thing. Like I said,
it could
like
be a big
90,
thing.
Kyrie at
90
home for
days?
90 days.
What's
Shoot.
90 days? But
That's
how
a
far
playoff
is
run.
Is it the playoff?
That might be a
run?
playoff. That might be a
Well,
playoff
I
run.
mean,
3 months, right?
Right? 3
No,
months.
if he does now, it's like right up into the playoffs.
Now I'm on my Google Calendar. That's what we're digging into.
I
Right now.
hope he's got a good
think
lawyer.
It's like
I hope
right
he's
up
got-
into it, but I mean,
I hope it's
After
not as.
that 90.
I hope he didn't hire his aunt to be his lawyer though. If we're going this route, he's got to get a real lawyer. We get a lawyer up properly.
Yo, his
Yeah.
aunt be coming out with the statements, yo. Shout out to Kyrie's aunt, yo. She's
Shout out.
coming out
Big
with
shout
the
out.
statements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's in the comments right now.
She-
Kyrie's
He's
in a
talking.
minute now.
Yo, if you're joining us right now, we just beat the Pacers. Kyrie Irving returned. We got the Glue Guys here. Make sure you subscribe to the Glue Guys. Let me read some comments. Let me know what you guys thinking in the chat. Oh yeah, we did a poll. Thank you. Somebody said who gets the game ball tonight. We did a poll tonight. Who gets the game ball tonight? Let me read the votes. 228 people voted. 30. Oh wow, it was Bembry was leading, but now it's Kyrie Irving with
Wow.
37%. Bembry is second with 30. Okay, he's going like Kyrie and Bembry.
Bembry
right now.
and
Like,
Kyrie, that's hilarious. This
it's
is
like battling between Kyrie and
that's
Bembry.
how you know you got the real ones in your audience. That's how you know.
Yeah.
If
Some people just go like Kyrie, but people,
Yeah.
if you watch the game, you would know DeAndre Bembry should be a high ranking for this game ball tonight. But who's your game ball tonight?
It's going crazy. I mean,
give him a curveball. Yeah, give him a curveball, Mike.
KD?
Yeah.
Dave Vanderpool.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to put him on the list.
What about you? Wait, what did you guys give it out as?
My game ball, I didn't even give a game ball. I just asked the chat who their game ball is. But
I would kind of cut the ball in half and give it to Bembry and Kyrie.
You
And
have-
just,
have
or just
Bembry,
like
have Kyrie.
lighten the guys up in the fourth because at Bembry's energy single-handedly just lit the fire under the whole
Fantastic,
team. And Kyrie like coming in with those timely shots at the end, just being that clutch guy at the end. And you could just instantly see it change the energy on the bench. It changed everybody else that was in there. Clax finally came back alive. Like KD's KD, but like even Harden stepped it up a little bit more. Like it just, the two of them together, I could see the obvious, hey, welcome back, Kyrie, here's the game ball. But like that was about to be a very ugly loss.
yeah,
If it weren't for Bembry's
energy.
energy. Like,
Yeah, his defense. Yeah, me too. I think I have to give it Cole because again, both guys we needed this to win we needed Bembry's energy and defense to win the game, and we needed Kyrie's like timely scoring in the fourth to win the game because I feel like Harden was kind of just there, but he wasn't, giving us enough scoring. So Kyrie, half of it goes to Kyrie, half goes to Bembry in mine.
I'm not doing any half balls. We're going all the way Kyrie for the memes. Okay.
All right,
We got
all ball or no ball.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm gonna go
Carter
half.
for not stepping on the floor.
There you go. Is this a? I have to assume this is an anti-Javon Carter space. I have.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
of course.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good taste. Good taste. Proper.
We're
proper
all-
taste.
Aren't you guys glad that Javon's on the you need a guy on the team that you that you
Don't
dislike.
like.
I don't want to use those terms, but that you can kind of be angry at. You
He's
need
taking
one person.
TLC's spot. He took TLC's spot.
Yeah,
So
he took
It's
TLC.
it was
there's
TLC
got to
last
be
year.
a cow every season. I mean, there's got to be somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. People are angry. Say somebody said Katie scored 39. Stop the cap. Oh, here we go.
I mean,
Here we go.
listen, KD
Thank
did
you.
have a good game. It just
Katie had a
was-
great game.
It was
but
it was just
average.
during a time when it was really ugly out there, and that's the tough part. So I kind of always say a quiet 39, if that makes sense, where he had a great game, but everybody else around him was not having a great game until later.
Yeah.
And then it helped.
I
That
like.
third quarter, we were down 17 in that third quarter. In the 3-minute mark, Steve Nash calls timeout, puts Kyrie back in, and then we go on a run from that. We go on a run from that, and then Bembry's defense just boosted that. So I feel like that momentum just had changed the game. Even though KD was scoring, KD was been scoring since the first quarter. He was going off, but that momentum just swung.
And you could just tell that the offense is so. I mean, people. I don't know where people are with underrating or overrating Kyrie, but our offense being so good last year, I think is really, you can attribute it to Kyrie on some level. It's just a perfect fit for what we do. And the way that I've sort of seen our offense this season, it's been kind of truncated between two things, which is either Harden kind of leading an offense of a kind of a crusty Nick Claxton pick and roll or pick and pop with Aldridge, or Patty Mills coming off of 500 screens to end up somewhere, or just okay, that play's kind of broken down. Now let's get KD his shot, and that plus another version of it with Kyrie is that amount of spacing, and then also Kyrie being a radically different kind of but super effective offensive threat is. It just feels so much more we just have it feels like we have our arsenal back, full, our Megatron is actually built and working again, in a way that even when it was in the first quarter we kind of looked crusty and it wasn't really working, just the optics of it looked right, the end of the game, we kind of fell into just playmaking, shot making, whatever stuff, but even when it wasn't working, it was this is kind of how it should be,
Yeah, and we're still missing the last piece of that space.
Right,
But
right.
that's crazy. Hey, I'm gonna bring up one of our other hosts.
Yeah.
We wanted to give you guys the time to just having you guys on, and definitely just so we're all not talking over one another,
Oh,
because
yeah.
it can get a little crazy in here. But we're gonna move on to the next segment where we're gonna pretty much unleash the chat on you.
Love it.
We're gonna
Yeah,
unleash.
ask y'all questions right now.
ask
Just put
away. You
add
got
glue
questions?
guys in the chat. Put add glue guys in the chat right now.
Yeah.
Ask the questions for the glue guys.
It can
Again,
get a
these
little
guys are
spicy
connected.
in here, but
Yeah.
They're connected, bro. We got the athletic in the building. Shout out the athletic.
Yeah.
Shout out,
Shout out the
shout
Athletic. Get
man,
yourself
so.
subscription to
Mhm.
theathletic.com/.